just a good reminder for all of us. This program is really, about the transformation and growth in our business. And you guys know my belief: in order, for our businesses to grow, we have to grow ourselves first. And, there are no business problems. There's only leadership problems. And so before we can lead or coach anybody else, we got to be able to lead and coach ourselves first. And so that's why I really felt this month was important for us to dive in and have some more conversations around leadership. And I know I've shared this with you guys before, and it was one of the most powerful messages. It's funny how a couple of the most powerful messages that I've had have been with Blake Sloan. And, Blake, very dear friend of mine. And, we were chatting early pre-pandemic. And what's funny about Blake, this is I'm going to tell on him a little bit. He's a tinfoil hat guy. And so conspiracy theorist, like everything's a conspiracy theory. Like he goes down he goes down rabbit holes. Like he goes way deep into rabbit holes. Yet a lot of the stuff that he uncovers ends up coming to be true. So I just believe every tinfoil hat thinks he sends me. I believe it to be true now because he's been right so many times. All the pandemic stuff, he was early on with some investigative reporters that were kind of in the know on everything, just whatever. But I remember, that message, Blake had with Garrett White, his coach, which, if you guys, tune into Bradley or any of Bradley's stuff, he had Garrett on last week. It was an incredible conversation. Garrett's, he's not for everybody. Garrett as Warrior, and obviously not for everybody. However, it was just an incredible conversation. I've listened to it twice. I'm obviously a Garrett fan, but he, I just remember that conversation, and I think it was in April. It was in April of 20. And, we were just talking about, because, Garrett was doing all of these, kind of, as a lot of the coaching programs were, right? They were doing a lot of emergency, conversations around kind of what's going on, what do you need to do with your business, the things that you need to do. And, I'll never forget that message. And Garrett just flat out said, he said, motivation ain't going to get you out of this, right? The only thing that's going to get you and the people around you is you're going to have to lead your way out of this. And that's just been one of the most powerful lessons that conversations have having with Blake. And, just obviously that was the message that Garrett had. And it's just so true and so powerful. So you think through in any times of uncertainty, any times of struggle, any times of like the feeling the defeated, leadership is the only thing that's going to get you out of any situation. And so that's why I really want to make sure that we're keeping that at the forefront. And any of the struggles, where am I off in my leadership? Right. It goes back to extreme ownership, the 100-0 principle. Like, where am I not leading at the level that I need to be leading at this point? So I want to continue that conversation as we're going to really focus in on a lot of leadership this month. And so we spent last week kind of discussing some self-leadership skills and things to focus on with mindfulness, our mindfulness practice, and then also, diving deep and unpacking emotional intelligence. I shared with the Honey Badger Leaders Group this morning. I had the opportunity to, the reason I got on at Shareholders, the reason I was on stage at Shareholders was because of my connection with the EXP University content director. Her name is Judy Slack. And when EXP kicked off and they did their Excel series last year, she was the one that kind of pushed it through. And I did 6 training sessions for Excel, the Excel training series in the world. And so when I was able to submit the application to speak at shareholders. She was the one that she picked mine out. And so that's the reason I was able to speak. And she hit me up for another favor as they're building out the success coaching modules for the mentees, for the mentors, right? So leadership and training for the mentors. And she asked if I would record some sessions and stuff for her. So I did. And, we got into what I shared with you guys last week. And I shared, I just did a 10-minute little walkthrough of that. And, she stopped me afterwards and she said, she's like, she goes, one, I was teared up. And she goes, you've got to that's like one of the most important messages that we can't lose sight of, is making sure what are we doing to improve that skill set on a consistent basis. So if you guys missed last week's growth call, it's worth going back to listen to just to pull how we've unpacked, emotional intelligence, things that we need to be doing to improve on that on a consistent basis. And had a call with Brian right before this. And we were talking about, struggling with, the big picture and, not thinking big enough. And, one of the things that I shared with them to maybe think about is that we tend to only see things through the lens of our current reality. And typically through the lens of our current financial reality is how we tend to see things. And that will trigger the fight or flight or freeze in us. And so what we have to be really, really aware of, and this is what I challenged him with, is his question was, how do I think bigger? And I was like, bro, you're limiting yourself because of your current financial situation. You need to remove that barrier. So what if you had 10 million liquid in the bank right now? What would you do? Really think about that. If you had all the cash that you could ever think about needing, what would you want your life to look like? I said, but here's the secret, right? You got to visualize this life to come into being. That's part of it. You got to take massive action on it. Yeah, that's part of it. But you really got to be thinking about, who do I have to become in order for that to be true? That's the question, right? I want my business to be able to impact this. Okay, well, who do you have to become for that to be true? That's always the question that you have to come back to, no matter what it is, right? I want a DBA. You guys know that, right? And who do I have to become for that to be true? You guys want this amazing business, this amazing life in health, wealth, and relationships. Well, who do you have to become for that to be true? And I think that's one, getting back to what we talked about last week from a self-leadership perspective, is that you gotta, who do you have to become and how are you modeling that behavior? And it's just a great reminder. And, we're always on stage as a leader. And I think one of the most important things for me is when my kids got on social media, when my son and my daughter got on social media. So now I'm like, oh, okay. Am I going to put something up there that makes my kids cringe, or are they going to be like, yeah, right? Because we were talking about, are you building a business that your kids would be proud, or you would be proud for your kids to work at? And those are just little bitty filters and things to think about, right? So are you building something that your daughter would want, that you would be proud for your daughter to come work at? Because that's when I'm in the situation I'm in, right? My daughter moves into OU tomorrow, and then I get her to come help me 2 days a week starting next week. And so it's just man, is she going to be proud? Is she excited to come in here? Right. Want her to come to kitchen table. Are we doing things that I want to have an impact on them? And so those are just some great filters as we're thinking through our leadership and our leadership capabilities as we continue to grow. So I want to really more so dive in today around leadership, kind of what, it's one of those words that gets thrown out. I was like, what are we talking about? What does that mean? I want to talk about leadership styles. I want to talk about elements of leadership, and then the evolution of leadership for us this week. It's, like I said, it's one of the conversations that we've constantly got to be having. To me, it's the overarching of everything that we do, right? We can have a great vision. We can have the perfect model. We can have the best plan. We're executing at a high level. We've got the team. but none of it means anything if we can't lead ourselves and we can't lead others. And so I just don't want us to lose sight of that. And especially as we are, the leaders of our families, the leadership, of our teams, the leaders in our community. And, I think I shared with you guys too, conversation with Stuman in the monthly call. And we were just talking about all of the noise and the drama and like, don't get caught up in the narrative. This is where leadership is so critical for us to be able to lead our way through anything, is that we don't get caught up in the narrative. We don't get caught up in the noise. I couldn't even tell you guys, honestly, no shit. I have not watched the news since it used to be on all the time in our office in Lawton, Oklahoma. We had a big screen behind the entryway when you came in. The news was on all the time. I haven't watched the news since then. Like a lot of the stuff, like just by circumstance, or my tinfoil hat good buddy Blake Sloan sends me some rabbit holes to dive down. But we got to be real careful, right? As leaders, how are we leading through whatever narrative, whatever climate the market is in? Because it's always going to be in a climate, no matter what. So getting into kind of leadership. So let's define it, right? So the definition of leadership is both a research area and a practical skill regarding the ability of an individual or organization to lead or guide other individuals, teams, or entire organizations. The one word, guys, that you have to, I'll keep harping on this. The word in there is skill. And so remember, anything that is a skill can be developed.